Anthropic just put out a whole prompting guide for Claude Fable 5, and it's basically a list of weird things the model does and the prompts that fix it. And that's exactly what makes it interesting. This isn't about the model being smarter on paper, it's about how differently it behaves once you put it to work. So today, we're going through all of it, every quirk, and where each one actually trips you up on real projects. Let's get into it. So the first big change, Fable 5 runs long. A single hard request can go for minutes, and if you let it run on its own, it'll go on for hours. Here's why that matters. Your timeouts and your loading bars, they're gonna break. So the move is to stop sitting there waiting on it, kick it off, and check back later like a scheduled job. The other big dial is effort. That's your trade-off between how smart the model is versus how fast and cheap it can be. Keep it on high most of the time, bump it up to X high for your really tough stuff, and drop it down for the boring routine work. And get this, even on low, Fable 5 often beats the old models flat out. So in practice, you should crank it up for a nasty refactor, but turn it down when you're generating a config file. There's no reason for you to pay top dollar for that. Okay, here's a theme that shows up across a few sections. Fable 5 follows instructions so well now that you can steer it with one short line. You don't need a giant rulebook anymore. Want it to be brief? That's just one sentence now. Lead with the outcome. That's it. That used to take a whole bulleted list in the past. Next, boundaries. Fable 5 will sometimes just do the things you didn't ask for. It'll draft an email, make a backup branch in Git, so you spell it out. When I'm just thinking out loud, don't go fix anything. Just tell me what you found and stop. Picture this in a data job. You ask a question about a spreadsheet, and instead of answering, it helpfully rewrites your source file. This is the line that stops that. And then there's the early stopping. Deep into a long session, it'll say, okay, I'll run this now, and then it just doesn't. So you give it a reminder before you end your turn. If the last thing you said was a promise, go and actually do it. For a coding pipeline, that's the difference between a finished pull request and one that's just sitting there. Now, there are two problems that show up on those long runs. First one, it can lie about progress. Not on purpose, but on a multi-hour task, it'll report work it never actually did. The fix is to make it check every claim against a real result. If it can't prove it, it has to say so. Anthropic says this basically wiped out all the fake status updates. Think about an overnight report that runs while you sleep. You need done to actually mean done, not just the model feeling optimistic. Second problem, readability. After a few hundred steps, it starts talking in shorthand. Arrow symbols, abbreviations it made up, references to stuff you never even saw. So you tell it, your final message is the first thing I'm reading. So slow down and explain it like it's new. If you're actually building agents, this part's for you. Sub-agents. Fable 5 loves to spin these up, so lean into it, hand off the independent pieces, let them run in the background, and keep the useful ones alive so they remember context and save you money. So instead of doing everything one at a time, you've got one agent running the tests, the others updating the docs and migrating the database all at once. Then there's memory, and this one's highly slept on. Fable 5 does really well when it can write down what it learned and read it back later. And it can be that simple. Just a folder of notes, one lesson per file, what worked and why, and delete the stuff that turned out wrong. The payoff? It stops making the same mistake every single time. And for scaffolding, start with something harder than you'd normally trust a model with. Make it check its own work as it goes. And this is the big one. Go back and clean up your old prompts. A lot of them were written for older models, and they're too bossy. They actually make Fable 5 worse. With this thing, less is more. Let me give you a couple of tips. Tell it why, not just what. Fable 5 does better when it knows the reason. So don't just say write this function. Say I'm building this for a client. They need it to do X. So here's what I need. That little bit of context helps it connect the dots instead of guessing. The other tip is that it gets anxious about running out of room. In really long sessions, it'll start suggesting you split things up or wrap it up early. Usually that's because it's staring at a token counter. There's two fixes to this. Hide the counter if you can. And if you can't, just reassure it and tell Fable you've got plenty of room, keep going. And finally, here's the last technical bit, and it's a smart one. For those long background agents, you give it a tool called send to user. When it's got something you have to see word for word, a bit of code, a draft message, a number, it calls that tool and it shows up in your app exactly as written without ending the run. There is one catch though, just building the tool isn't enough. You have to actually tell it to use it, and only for stuff you need to see. So picture an agent that pings you overnight with a message. Here's the migration script, take a look before I run it, instead of the agent running it and you actually finding out in the morning. Quick heads up, Fable 5 has safety filters around offensive cybersecurity and life sciences stuff. And honestly, even harmless work in those areas can trip them. So if that is your world, set up an automatic fallback to Opus 4.8. That way a blocked request gets rerouted instead of blowing up. So that's the whole thing. Fable 5 runs longer. You steer it with shorter lines. You make it prove its progress. You lean on subagents and memory. You give it context and you use that send to user tool when it matters. And the real takeaway? This model's good enough that your job isn't babysitting it anymore. It's setting good boundaries. And honestly, that's the hard part. It's knowing where this stuff actually pays off in your business. That's exactly what I do. I help companies figure out where AI fits, what to build first, and how to make it hold up in the real world. So if you've got something in mind and you want a second set of eyes on it, there's a link to book a call down in the description. Let's figure it out together. If you enjoyed watching this video, hit like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.